episode 1 of the Songwriters Couch. With us today for episode 1 is the one, the only, Mr. Nathan Teal. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
For sure.
I appreciate it. Yeah, this is our second attempt at recording this, too, because we had some technical difficulties. So we've got a wonderful young lady behind the cameras here doing some switching for us. So we'll hopefully be going a little smoother here on what we're doing. So thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. So I guess we'll start with, what was that riff we were just playing?
That's our co-written song. That was your riff.
That's right. And Nathan was making fun of me because I didn't remember it. And he's tuned a half step down, so he was fooling me as we were getting into tuning here for Dadgad. If anyone doesn't know what that tuning is, which is when you tune the D down or the E down to a D, both E's down to a D, right?
Yeah, and the B goes to an A.
Yeah, and the B goes to an A.
D,
so,
A, D, T,
oh, you know what?
A,
I think
D.
I didn't. Oh, did I? Yeah, I think I did tune it down to an A.
You did.
Yeah. Finally in the end there. But yeah, we got to work on that song, and we got to get a good recording of it, I think, at some point soon. So
needs to happen.
But yeah, so this is the first show. We've got some sponsors that will hopefully show up in the beginning of this episode after it's all edited and all that stuff. So we'll talk about them at a later time. But I want to start by talking to you, Nathan, about how kind of you got into music first of all, and then kind of talk about what you're doing with your career now, where it's going, and kind of your songwriting process, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Cool. And to start, though, for first episode, let's toast a little bit. We've got some generic Picasso whiskey here that we're drinking. I don't think that's an actual brand unless it is. Then if they want to sponsor us, they can come on and sponsor us. I just put a label on this decanter thing.
A Picasso sticker on it. Okay.
So yeah, so what I guess we'll start there. What got you into music? Was your family like musical or?
So I couldn't necessarily tell you exactly when I got into music. Music's just been kind of part of my life from the get-go, as far as I can tell. It was in my blood. My recently discovered biological grandfather on my father's side, he was a rock musician back in like the 60s.
Hold on. Do you want to get into the recently discovered?
Not particularly. No? That's a long story in and of itself. But yeah, so he was a rock musician in the 60s. I don't know like what bands he was in or anything like that, but those are all mysteries yet to be uncovered. And my grandfather, the grandfather that I knew locally, who my mother's father, he was a folk gospel musician. Huh. So he played a lot of bluegrass, banjo, harmonica, guitar, et cetera, et cetera.
True Americana style music?
Yeah, like gospel stuff. Like if you're thinking gospel, yeah. I don't know what you think when you think gospel, but I think Gaithers. I
think the the scene in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, where there's the 3 sirens in the water. That's what I think of when I hear gospel for some reason. I don't know why.
I need to watch that movie again.
I forget how the song goes now.
That's what's his face?
Yeah, it's an old
George Clooney.
An old hymn. Yeah, that they do in there. Great music in that. Yeah. Movie, by the way. I would like to rewatch that again sometime.
It's a fantastic movie. Sorry. I only just saw that a few months ago. So
did Sirens come to you or did you sell your soul on
that wasn't
a crossroads?
That didn't happen.
Okay, so at some point you got handed an instrument or you picked up.
Yeah, so I had always kind of like fiddled with my grandfather's instruments. I had piano lessons when I was like 8, 9 years old, something like that, and I kind of gave up on that because they didn't progress. So that whatever the philosophy was with a particular teacher that we had, we just like it stayed at the same spot for like 6 months, and I got bored of it, so I quit.
That was with the fiddle, you said?
No, piano.
Oh, piano.
Yeah, a little bit different than a fiddle.
Huh. I kind of wish
some minor differences there.
Yeah, I kind of wish you played a fiddle now.
So yeah, the piano was my first instrument. I learned the Suzuki method at like 8 or 9 years old, and got to a point and got bored of it and just quit and didn't teach myself again until I was 15, 16 years old, something like that. But guitar has been my main instrument since I was 11 or 12. I had started playing air guitar to some old Stephen Curtis Chapman stuff as a Christian, like a major Christian artist. And I told my mom once, I was like, I think if I had a real guitar, I think I'd be pretty good at it. That's from playing air guitar.
Yeah.
So I sucked at it for a long time. I had no sense of rhythm or anything until.
But you looked real cool doing it.
Yeah.
Is that
It's an old nylon string guitar with no sex appeal at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you had sex appeal, Nate.
No, I don't think I did.
Don't worry about it.
But yeah, so I had no rhythm at all. I was sitting playing with my brother one night, and I'm watching his arm flop around like a dead fish kind of thing. I was like, okay, let me try that, and haven't really had much trouble with it ever since.
Huh. So you kind of taught yourself. Well, obviously you knew some theory from piano or whatever. Right?
Some minor theory. What I've learned of theory, I've mostly forgotten. But people will tell me like, theory, you just don't know how to phrase it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's me too. I never got any formal training. I can't read music.
Yeah.
I really don't even know even scales, like what's in key, what's like it just kind of.
I keep trying to go back to it and learn it, and it's just like it doesn't work for my brain for whatever reason. I don't know, and I know I'll get flack for that. But
yeah, well, you're a good guitar player and a good songwriter, so I don't think it matters. I think there's a lot of musicians out there that never learned theory, never learned how to read music or anything about it. They just it's a feeling. I think, and almost
it's not good for my superiority complex though.
No, what that
I don't know theory.
Oh, yeah. Why? Because you wanna know.
I want to feel like a big shot.
Okay.
It's just
just throw out like DeLorean. And
I go to talk to my friends who know theory, and I'm like, suddenly I'm like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. It's like coding. For computers.
Here's something I've learned though. There are musicians that are great at the theory part of it, right? And that's it's got its space for it because a lot of times I'll go like I have Greg in the band and Garrigan and some other individuals that are trained. They know their technical stuff about music, right? And so if I'm searching for something, sometimes they can actually pull it. Oh, you mean this? When I'm trying to kind of find a bridge for a song or something, they could be like, oh, well, what about these chords? Just because in theory it should work, and maybe I alter that a little bit, or they alter it, or whatever after the fact. But I found that songwriting in and of itself is a skill set that I don't know if I guess there are classes for it you could probably take, but I don't know if it makes sense to really to like do a class on it necessarily, other than maybe storytelling. Melodies.
I get ads for it on Facebook all the time, though.
Oh, for songwriting?
Master songwriting classes and
with
stuff
who?
like that.
Do you know who?
I don't know. They're always like these like multi-platinum Nashville writers that like what. I've never heard your name before until you start talking about who you've written for. I still don't know if you've actually written for them.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because that's a whole genre of musician too that just writes songs, and that's what they do, and they never actually perform live. They never record anything. They just write for other artists, which is kind of cool. I'd like to do that at some point. Just write for someone else and then watch them like express the song.
That's why I love the production side of things. Like I would love to just be behind the scenes. And never have to like play a guitar live.
Yeah,
I enjoy playing live. Don't get me wrong. There's a certain energy that you get. It's like a certain adrenaline rush you get from that. But
I feel like
if I could have my way about it, if there's one spot in the music scene that I would like to be, it would be behind the scenes, writing music and producing music, and that would be it. I'd be happy there.
Yeah, I think the older I get too, the more I want to do that.
Yeah.
Because you have to carry equipment everywhere, the like loading, unloading. It's the worst part of the whole thing.
Yeah,
like,
it sounds
and
exhausting.
if you don't have roadies and all that kind of thing with you, you're kind of like, you're kind of doing it all yourself. And the old joke about the singer, never doing anything in my band. Like I own the PA and I own a lot of the equipment, so I'm the one that ends up having to carry, tons of stuff and set everything up and stuff. So. My band can't, and I'm going to say this: that my band can't complain about me not setting stuff up, all right, or not bringing stuff in. I carry the PA every time. So you started getting into guitar because of your older brother, right? Your older brother, and so did you start songwriting like immediately, or was it kind of just you started learning cover songs and stuff like that?
No, I mean I was trying to write songs before I was really started playing guitar. I told you the other day the first song I ever wrote was like a plagiarized country song.
Yeah.
Like I just copied it almost verbatim, and it was like, look, I wrote a song. It was 9 years old or something like that. And so I mean, I've been trying to write music for a lot longer than I've been actually playing it.
The old fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So the guitar I got into because of my oldest brother Jim. Singing I got into because of my brother Joe, who said one time that I was like, I want to be a singer. And I thought, I want to be like Joe, so I'm going to be a singer.
Does your older brother still play?
Yeah. He still sings. My oldest brother still plays guitar. He had some stuff on like, was it SoundCloud or something like that for a little while. But it was more like electronic experimental stuff because he got into like Moby and some of the more like,
like electronic stuff.
Yeah, dubstep and stuff like that.
See, when I was growing up and just learning to play guitar, started songwriting, all that sort of thing was in the 90s, right? When Nirvana came out and Pearl Jam and all those alternative bands that were very like anti-establishment.
Right.
You know, you don't want to write popular songs. Like you want them to be as unpopular almost as possible was kind of the mindset back then. So I started writing just almost noise, but I used to write poetry a lot too. So I would add in, like words to that. But I remember the first few songs I wrote. People liked them. Oh, man, I have a story about a Sweet 16 party I played once when I was younger, but maybe I'll save that for a later episode. We got hired as a band to play this Sweet 16 party.
See, you're going to save it for another episode, but now you're going to tell why you're saving it for another episode.
Well, it was our first gig ever. We were a 3-piece band, and we used to practice in a space in Queens, in the basement of this Democratic club, right? My drummer, his older brother or something worked for the Democratic like party there, and they had this building where they would hold meetings and stuff like that. But we were allowed to be in the basement, but there was always it was dirt floor, okay? So there was no, it wasn't finished basement. It was dirt floor. There was about an inch of water throughout the whole thing, so all of our amps and stuff had to be on like milk crates, like above it, and you had to like hang the wires appropriately so you wouldn't get electrocuted. But still, the only plugs that were down there were all like shorted or whatever. So every time I would get even remotely close to the microphone at the same time I was holding the guitar, I would get an electric shock. Yeah. So it almost taught me, like people have to learn how to like keep a fist in between themselves and the microphone when they sing. It was like electroshock.
Yep.
Therapy or whatever it's called. What is that, Pavlov's thing where he rings the bell? Is that it, Pavlov? Yeah. But I'd get shocked.
You weren't getting a treat every time. Yeah.
But anyway, we ended up playing the Sweet 16, and it did not go the way the young lady that was turning Sweet 16, I think, had hoped that gig would go.
Yeah.
So, the reason I bring that up is because some of the songs I wrote back then, while I thought they were terrible, people seemed to kind of like them. And I found that even though I had terrible songs, like the more I wrote, kind of the better I got. Each song that I wrote got a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better. So you started kind of just playing around, making, doing the dead fish with your hand, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the dead fish. That's how I learned to play rhythm. And rhythm's always been my strong suit because of playing in the churches and stuff like that. It's just like there wasn't a high demand for intricate leads and stuff like that. So,
what was that like for playing in church bands and stuff?
I kind of miss it sometimes, I don't know. I've been a part of churches that like didn't put an emphasis on doing things really well, and I've been a part of churches that like put too much emphasis on doing things really well.
Yeah.
So you go from one extreme where it's like it doesn't really matter if we were all in time or in sync, and it's kind of like this, like
what
we were happy to just play together.
Do you feel like that was the smaller churches that you were in, or it was like just?
Well, the smallest church I was in put the biggest emphasis on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and that was like, you screw up a chord and somebody notices it, and then you get
flogged.
You get a conversation about it afterwards. Like, how can we prevent this in the future? It's like, it's a mistake.
Is this how Jesus would have played his guitar? That kind of thing. You have to go to confession afterwards and confess your.
I mean, I miss it. I miss it because like you felt like you were a part of something that mattered, and I haven't had a whole lot of that in the last couple of years.
I feel like Christian music. I've heard some. You know, I was never really into that and the religious thing. But like, you know, I've heard a lot of Christian bands and stuff like that, and they're usually pretty tight.
Yep.
And the stuff that I've seen of like, you know, I have some friends that do audio and stuff here in Rochester for some of the churches and stuff, and the production quality of some of these things, like I don't know where these churches are getting this money from, but like the production quality of some of it is fantastic. And like you said, I guess maybe I'm just so used to seeing those bigger productions that I have this like this thought process of a church being like super, you know, tight bands that are, you know, really on point, and they have their, you know, good equipment and all that stuff. But I'm assuming probably some of these other churches are,
I mean,
are not in that.
It really depends on where you're at. Some of the bigger churches are going to have the budget for it, and they're going to have a little bit more of a rigorous like audition process.
I've thought about actually trying out for a church too, but then I feel like if I step inside of it, they might know that I'm me. And then they're going to kick me out immediately. But do you think that it gave you a good insight into like the band dynamic? Because I think that's something that takes a lot of learning, like being part of a band and making it successful and having everyone kind of go along with a particular vision for how that is. Do you feel like you learned a lot of like discipline around being in a band from that?
Yeah, I know. At one point, I had gone to this bigger church on the west side of Greece here, and I got to the point with that one where I was like, I was a little bit drained from having to like work so hard at everything, and it's something like in retrospect, I appreciate the fact that I had that.
Kind of like boot camp for...
Yeah, because then the next church, I left that church to go help plant a church, and I led the music at that one, and I was leading a rotation of like up to 12 people. So we had like 2 or 3 different drummers, 3 different basses.
Plant a church?
Yeah, plant a church.
Like
for the uninitiated, that means you're just like you're starting a new church.
Gotcha.
That's all it is.
I figured.
It's there's a...
That's cool.
I've been so much a part
I dig
of
it. I like the
so
metaphor. I like the metaphor behind it.
Yeah, so I learned some interpersonal skills, and I had a few people quit because they thought I was being too abrasive, and there was something for me to learn from there too. Is like take a step back and be like, okay, is there something I can do better here? Is there a way I can work with people better?
That's interesting. So, yeah, because you don't strike me as someone that's going to be like really a hard ass or whatever.
Yeah,
is, you know,
no, I try not to be. I really do try not to be.
But you feel like you learn kind of like leading people and some leadership skills from it and stuff?
So, and my bassist now in my band.
Why did someone like tell you to F off or something?
Not exactly, no.
Okay.
No, we had this guy. He was part of the band early on, and we maintained a good friendship after he stepped down. Or stepped down after he quit the team, so to speak. But he just felt like I was being a little bit too hard up on everybody to do things perfectly, and I was like, we're a bunch of amateur musicians. You can't really ask too much. Yeah.
Plus, some of it is just you're just having fun a little bit too, so you can't be too
right.
You know.
Yeah, I learned a lot from that particular conversation, and I feel like by the time I had to step away from that, like we all got along really well as a team. We'd sit down before practices, and we'd have conversations about life, and we'd laugh together, and we'd encourage each other, and even same kind of the same situation with my band now with the two guys.
What's the name of it again?
Spearfish Guest.
Right.
We'll talk about that. But Caleb, my bassist, he's from this particular church that I had led at.
Oh yeah, that's right. You told me about that. He was from that.
And my drummer, he's been a part of several different churches as well. So Caleb and I we've maintained a pretty good friendship throughout the last seven years or so.
Right on. Yeah, so you think that like that, especially, well, I guess if you played together in a band already, you kind of already have the dynamic. I found that like when you have bands, there's almost like a language that each band has. It's like a relationship. You know, I always equate equate bands to like being in a marriage with like, five or six different people or whatever. Depending on the group.
That'd be.
Would that be like?
No, I wouldn't use that analogy.
No? But I feel like you have to manage the relationships with everyone because everyone's a different person. They take feedback differently.
Yeah, and it helps to really click well right off the bat. Like for Caleb and Zach and I, we all get along really well, and that was important. Like we didn't want to bring in somebody who just didn't click, even if he was a good musician.
Yeah.
Do you guys? It was good for us to have like we all have like similar ideas of what we want from music. Zach's a jazz drummer, so it's been a little bit of an adaptation for him.
Huh. But that's good. Jazz drummers are usually good.
Yeah,
drummers,
he's pretty solid. He's a good dude, and he's been able to give a lot of good input and so like I like having the input from multiple different people. Even if I wrote the song, right, and I have a vision for it, but then you bring it to a few different people, and they have all got different perspectives on it, and like, what if we did this, or what if we did that?
Well, that's obviously this is the songwriter's couch, right? Yeah. So where I want to talk about your songwriting process. So do you feel? So you kind of just said that you come in. Probably, especially now, at the beginning of the band, because this is just 6 months old. This band, maybe a year.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that a lot of the songs kind of came either from you or one of the other bandmates or whatever that you're playing or you're practicing now. Do you feel like you kind of are in the process of writing together as you go on, or is it something where you come in with a almost finished song and they kind of flesh it out? And
so usually what happens is I'm gonna get a little closer to the mic here. Usually what happens is I'll write a song and I'll hash it out and I'll get it to the point where I feel like, okay, I think I know where I want to go with this, and then I'll bring it to the band. I've only really written 1 or 2 songs since we started, but we're not really writing together right now. Eventually I would like to bring in somebody else who's like, they're a writer, they're a vocalist, they're a guitarist, and I would like to have somebody to like bounce off and back and forth with a little bit. Because like going back to the same thing with production, I don't like necessarily being the only one.
Yeah. I feel
who's the face of something.
I feel like it gets very one-dimensional when you do that.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to take the input of your other bandmates and their suggestions and all that, because I think it just makes it a more dynamic, end product. And I think the people that want to have their ideas be the forefront or whatever, as opposed to serving whatever the song is, I think those are the people that don't end up actually having good music. If you can take that input of the rest of the people that are trying to give input, and you can actually implement it into the songs, I think they become like way more dynamic and interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you write from one person's perspective, and you might only reach like one other person who can relate to you. You invite multiple perspectives into it, and then suddenly you've got a much more adaptable.
How do you typically start a song? Like, is it? I'll give my example of usually I'm in my boxer shorts in the morning, cup of coffee in front of me, scratching myself and what have you. But I grab a guitar, I'm drinking my coffee, and I start playing something. I'm like, oh, this is interesting or whatever. And then a lot of times it'll kind of just come quickly. And those are my favorite songs, usually the ones that kind of just happen. I don't know where it comes from. It's usually right when I wake up, because I feel like I'm fresh. My brain is kind of fresh at that time of day. So some of the best songs that I've written have been at that like early hour, like 8 a.m. I'm just, like I said, drinking a cup of coffee or whatever. And then I start kind of writing a riff, and then I'll add some lyrics, or I'll have a hook that I'll start singing, usually mumbling some sort of melody, and then it ends up turning into a song. So how do you start your songs typically?
It varies, honestly. Like, I don't know if I have a typical process exactly. There are often times where like I'll have a riff or a lyric idea that I've been sitting on for a year, a couple months to a year, and then I'll suddenly like I'll get the inspiration. Is like, okay, I know what I want to do with this. We talked about Distance before, the song. I'm not gonna try to belt that out right now, but whereas like I had the chorus in my head for probably 2 or 3 years, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I knew I wanted to do something with it, so I held on to it like for dear life.
Yeah.
But I didn't know where I wanted to go with it until my parents started to kind of separate, and all of a sudden, I had direction for it.
Isn't that amazing?
And it came very quickly once I knew what it was. It was like 45 minutes, maybe 30 to 45 minutes, something
right?
like
and
that.
It just
like
comes out.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too how much like painful moments and that sort of thing, because I tend to write my best stuff too in those situations, like things that aren't. I don't write the best happy songs or love songs. I'm always like, I don't write love songs. I write almost like anti-love songs,
right.
so to speak. But I feel like I get a lot of inspiration from those, that like heart-wrenching kind of feeling that really like makes you know you're alive.
Yeah, it's honest, it's real, it's dirty. It's like I think sometimes love songs are so hard to write because unless you're feeling it in that particular moment, it comes off like campy and kind of insincere. It's really hard for me to write upbeat songs, just because I feel like I usually have to try too hard for it, and it kind of sounds hokey.
That's interesting, because I kind of feel the same way. Like I have upbeat songs, but they tend to be darker, like like rock and roll type of upbeat songs versus like an Ed Sheeran who writes like these sweet love songs about whatever. Or maybe I'm jaded in my old age or whatever. I just can't write them anymore. But yeah, I feel like even when I do write something that's even like a semi love song, there's got to be that dark side of it. One of my songs is called "Pass the Whiskey" or whatever, and it's about done with love, pass the whiskey, right? That's right, this delicious whiskey. But there's got to be that, because it gives something additional to it. Like it feels, again, if you're like you said, it sounds or it feels campy in a way. Like it feels one dimensional. Like if it doesn't have that dark side of that feeling to it too.
Yeah. So even with Guarded's like this upbeat blues rock song, and I wanted to write something lighthearted with it, but it's still got this like counter. I'm not ready to fall in love. Yeah. And I think you're playing me kind of thing going on with it. Huh. So there's a twist to it where it's like, it's upbeat, it's fun, and then you start listening to the lyrics and you go, maybe not so much. Maybe you're not as happy as you're coming off right now. Right. But
do you think what would be your favorite out of your songs that you've written? What's your favorite, I guess? Because I have my favorites that I like to play. Like my favorite song to play, and then I have my favorite kind of song that I like to almost listen to of my own too. Do you have a couple of like what are your songs that you just love playing?
Yeah, so Distance is probably the song I'm the proudest of. And then I think because it hits you so hard, it's like, oh my gosh, that I felt that one. Goodbye came very quickly last November. I've said this to other people before. Like I sat down, I had no idea where I was going with it. I didn't know what I was writing, but I sat down and just started playing a few chords, and it just like it was like this. It was there. I just didn't know it was there, and it was waiting for me to give it the time and place to come out. And so that one came very quickly. I sat down like an hour before going to open mic and wrote it all down, and then I went to open mic and played it. And it was like instantly like everybody in the room just shut up and they listened for the entire song, and I said to myself, it's like this is a good one. This one's a keeper.
Yeah. You know what I've noticed too when you do that at open mics, when you play a new song sometimes and it's super fresh, like you write it that morning or whatever, and you go and you play it in front of people. There's this, because it's so fresh, it's so emotional that it it usually comes across really well. And then sometimes I'll play it again, like later on when I fleshed it out more, or like feel like I've perfected the song a little more.
And it loses the luster a little bit.
Almost a little less emotion. Yeah. There was Demi Lovato wrote a song called Anyone and she said that she had to, because the recording itself is a little rough because it's just a piano and it's her. But she's like, I think I felt like I had to record it because otherwise it was going to lose. Like if we kept, finessing it more and more and more, it was going to lose its like raw emotional state.
Right. And that's one thing I've determined with Goodbye is that when I go to record it, it's just going to be me and a guitar. I might not even use a click track, just because I don't want it to lose what it is in the production.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other songs like they need the whole big thing. They need the extra guitars. They need the drums. They need. There are a few songs like I hate playing acoustic, and I won't play them at open mics, but I'll play them with the band.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's me too. Yeah.
There's a few of those, but
so
with
I'm
Goodbye,
guessing because you were in church bands and all that, that you have a belief in a higher power, right? So let me ask you this super loaded question about songwriting. Well, it's not super loaded, I guess. Where do you think these songs come from, Nate? Like, do you think they come from? Do you think they come from somewhere else? I remember hearing, I think it was maybe Paul McCartney saying it's like magic, it comes from somewhere that you kind of just don't know where.
Paul McCartney had some other chemical influences going on there too. I think
that's true.
That's
true. Although
let's be real.
I think they said, didn't they say something like they never did LSD or something like that? I think they were just lying.
LSD is just one kind of. Yeah. You can not do LSD and do tons of other things.
That is true. So that one thing you're saying they didn't do.
What is it they say? Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Yeah. Well, they said, who was it? Was it John that wrote that, or it was Paul?
Beats the crap out of me.
So, I think one of them said like, it was a picture of their daughter wrote or whatever, or drew, and it had like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was what like the picture was or whatever, and that's where it came from.
I've seen my kids' drawings. I could believe that.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I would assume that LSD, because I don't personally know, that a thought like that would about a picture or whatever. Because I've been inspired by crazy stuff too, like all sorts of stuff. But where do you think it comes from? Do you think it comes from you? Do you think it's like the universe kind of delivering it? And
so I would how would I phrase this? I would like to think of myself as like a practical deist. Like I believe in God, but I don't think everything has to necessarily, like he doesn't necessarily like light the fire behind everything.
Right.
So I still believe in the real world along with that. My emotions are real and they're my emotions. My experiences are real, they're my experiences. And I like to believe that God has a hand in everything, but I don't know that necessarily he is the cause for everything, if you know what I mean. I say that carefully because there's a line of theology that I like to think along, and sometimes that like kicks against that a little bit. But I'm I don't know. So I think even if I go to read the Bible and I read through the book of Psalms, there's a lot of experiences, a lot of psalms that are written in there that are like they're brutally honest. They're dealing with some crap, and they're like, God, just like squash my enemies, please. And I don't think those lines are particularly inspired. Like I don't think God's prompting the guy to ask God to slaughter his enemies for him.
Right.
But I understand the angst behind it too. Like as a human, it's like.
Well, I wonder sometimes too because.
Fix this.
Yeah, because we write like you and I, kind of similar. It's almost like fists to the sky songs sometimes too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like why is this the way things are or something. Right.
I've spent the last year like, God, why in the frick did you not fix my marriage? Like, what the heck?
Do you think that like writing when you write a song, right? Do you sit down to write it, or is it something like you just said, you kind of have an emotional feeling about something and it just kind of comes out of you and
Yeah, it goes a number of ways. With the song called "Fight with Me," it's just this like angsty punk song. I had the idea for it for a long time, but I knew that I needed to be angry when I wrote it. So as soon as I got that feeling, I was like, I need to sit down and I need to write this before I'm not angry anymore. So that was a very deliberate, like, I got home from work and I sat down with my guitar and I hashed it out and then I walked away from it. And that's one of those songs where I'm not proud of it lyrically.
Yeah.
But then you go to listen to some other punk songs and you're like, these aren't well-written songs. There's nothing well-written about a lot of these. So
you've heard Cardi B before, right? Lyrically.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah, it's not it's not very very subtle poetry.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah.
But that's also, I mean, it's not punk. So part of I think the appeal of punk is that it's just like, it's so hodgepodge. Yeah. It's nothing's perfect.
Yeah, they're just.
It's like a mess that works. So that's kind of where I feel like that song, even though I was pissed off when I wrote it, but I knew I had to be. And still, like, I'll sing through this song with a band, and we're not playing to anybody. I'm like, these lyrics are kind of cringy, but they are what they needed to be.
Yeah. Do you think that that's interesting? So, like, the songwriter in you caused you to say, I have this emotion. And you're almost like looking at it from the outside, which is how I write songs too, right? So you're looking at it almost as if you're looking at it.
Like you're dissociating from the
like
emotion.
You're an observer looking at it, and it helps you gain some perspective maybe on the...
I don't know, I've never thought about it that way before.
Yeah, it's almost like going, people go to therapy and stuff, and I feel like songwriters and musicians tend to kind of put a lot of their emotions into their music.
Yeah,
and I wonder if like it's a way of... almost like coping with...
I think that's accurate. I mean, music has been my therapy, going to open mics and whatnot for the last year. Year and a half it's been. I think I started going in March.
Pour you a little
yes,
more.
Please. March of 2022, I started going to open mics regularly. And I started writing again.
Do you feel like you're a more emotionally stable person now for playing music? I say that jokingly because there's no way that's the case.
Music doesn't stabilize your emotions.
But it helps get them
out.
Right?
It definitely gets them out. I don't know if you resolve anything with music. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know.
What's really interesting about it too is I think that it's almost like a picture that you take of a moment in time, but instead of it being a physical picture that you're looking at, it's an emotional photograph in music form of like a time in your life or an experience that you had or an emotion or what have you. And it's really because I listen to some of my old songs, or even songs I've written recently, and you listen to them and you almost realize later on what they mean, or at least that's for me. Some of my songs I'll write and I kind of don't know what they mean almost in the beginning,
right.
And then you look back at it or you listen to it again, you're like, oh. That was very like poignant actually to what I was feeling at that moment. It's like a looking back at a photograph of that moment in time in your life. And
look at this photograph.
that is
every time I do, it makes me laugh.
That's right. That's
my
a good
favorite band ever.
Is it?
No.
Who is that again? Is that Nickelback or is that?
Yeah, everybody likes to hate on Nickelback because it's fun. I legitimately just don't like Nickelback.
I mean,
I'm one of those people.
People have a good response to it, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Because
there's a place for them.
Yeah. So let's do this. So can I ask you a favor? So I don't know what that error message is there that's popping up there. Can you just tell me what that says there real quick? And I apologize because this is the first episode that we're doing here, but we do have some. Choose no, please. Perfect, and it's still recording, yeah? All right, excellent. All right, thank you. So I guess one of the things I'd like to do with this channel too is because there's going to be young people that are starting out in songwriting, and maybe it's not on guitar, maybe it's on their computer, maybe it's on their iPhone or whatever, and they're doing GarageBand and just playing piano and making beats or whatever. And it's probably going to be terrible when they first start. It's probably you're gonna make terrible songs, and I know on the first version of this episode we kind of talked about doing 1,000. Write 1,000 songs and then see if you're good at it, because you write so much stuff that you end up just throwing away. Yep. You have these like riffs that are just kind of go nowhere, or you thought, oh, this is great, and you listen back to it, later in the evening, you're like, oh man, I didn't even think that's a terrible, terrible riff or whatever.
Yeah.
Like what would be a tip or a trick or I hate the word life hack, but some sort of tip for people that are just starting out in songwriting, like what maybe now that you didn't know back then.
I don't remember all of what I said last time, but I do remember saying like just keep writing. You're gonna write bad songs, you're gonna write some good songs, and the good songs will make you realize what sticks. But I mean, I've written more songs that I've scrapped than that I've kept. So don't be afraid to write a song and crumple it up and throw it away. It's okay.
Or maybe even come back to it,
Yeah, and log some ideas and come back to them later. I have, again, the bridge for Distance was one of those, like, I didn't like the song, but I loved the bridge, so I stole the bridge from a different song and stuck it in Distance, and that's the way it stayed.
See, I've done that too, where I've actually taken other song, like riffs that I thought were going to be a full song,
right,
and then they end up just being either the chorus or the bridge. To something, and I end up just listening to it by chance, going through my notes on my, or whatever, the audio notes on my phone or whatever. And I'd concur with that. I think my songwriting has only gotten better because I've written so much garbage,
right,
that it's almost like you have to get it out of you. Yeah. So that that you have, you can.
I remember once like spending a few hours on this one song. It was long, and I worked my butt off for it, and I got to the end, and I read it back over, and I was like, "This is garbage. Right. I can't write songs. Yeah. What in the heck?" So yeah, just keep writing. Don't be discouraged by the stuff that sucks. You're gonna write some garbage, and that's okay. Yeah. But don't let that stop you. Grab onto the stuff that's good, and learn from both. And just keep going. Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the most important things is just keep doing something. The more you do it, the better you get at whatever it is, whether it be songwriting or life or podcasting, let's say, or whatever the case may be. The more times an electrician zaps himself, the more he figures out what doesn't work. That's right. That's right. The more you get booed. I think that's why why comedians are so such a hardy group of individuals, human beings, because they go up there. And can I just say something? I want to say something. If there are any comedians listening to this podcast or watching us, props. I have so much respect, especially when they end up going to a mainly music open mic. And nobody laughs. The amount of cojones you have to get up there. Yeah, and there's music, so you're not in the proper you're definitely the oddball in that situation. You get there, you got like 10 minutes to get the crowd on your side and all that. So big respect to comedians out there that go to mainly musical open mics, and just in general, comedians are. Yep. You figure out what people don't laugh at, and you. Yep. And I've actually taken a lot of comedians' way of writing jokes into how I approach sometimes my performances, my live performances and stuff. That's why I don't laugh at you. Yeah, that's right. But I'll go out there and I'll play something, and if the audience, like you said, doesn't react to it, doesn't especially at like a place like Love and Cup, for instance, which is an open mic. That's actually where you and I met. Mm-hmm. But it's a restaurant and it's a bar, but they just happen to have music. Yeah, it's
sort
like a
of,
dinner
right?
theater kind of a
So
thing.
yeah, so when they have the open mic, like there are people there that are not there to listen to music. They're there to like have dinner, have drinks or whatever with their family.
Yeah,
Just
and you know
open-
because Matt will say it, and then they'll get up and walk out.
Yeah, or if they stick around, they wait to see, okay, is this person that's coming up going to be actually good enough for me to want to stick around?
Mm-hmm.
And I think my gauge is if I start, if I play a couple of songs and those people that it looks like they were not going to stick around end up staying and or coming after me, up to me afterwards, like, oh, that was great, that was really good, or something like that. Or they end up staying even for a couple of acts after me because they're hoping that everyone else hits them in the way that like my songs hit them. Then I know, okay, that's a good song that I played, especially if it's a new one. I'll usually bring them out in that environment. So comedians do that a lot. They do crowd work and they go out and they have to test the jokes in front of people to see how people react. And I think musicians have to do that too, to some extent. So, so let's do this. Let's call it here. And I want to thank you first of all, Nathan, for being kind of the guinea pig to our
For sure.
To my show here that we've started and we're going to do lots more. And if you're a songwriter and you want to be on the show, reach out to us. On our Instagram, on our Facebook, or however. I'm Patrick Jaouen, so reach out to me however you can get a hold of me, and we'll talk about getting you on the show and talking about your songwriting process, etc. But you're going to play a song for us now, and let me just see. Can you turn that microphone real quick, just so I is it the green light on it?
Green light's on.
It is, okay. So why don't we talk a little bit about what this song is that you're going to play, and then we'll get right into it. So.
So I played Goodbye the other day. Should I just stick to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Just give me a second
Oh, you got to tune.
to fix myself here.
So the song is called Goodbye, right? Nate's a big fan of the alternate tunings as well. So while he tunes here, I just want to say also, we're continuing to get sponsors along the way. We've got a few. If you're interested in being a sponsor, again, reach out and we'll happily consider what you want. We definitely want sponsors that are kind of in the vein of music and probably whiskey too. But yeah, just reach out to us and we'll talk. Ready to?
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier. Goodbye is one of those songs where I didn't know what I was getting into when I sat down to write. I knew that I wanted to write something, and I knew that I needed to, but I didn't know what was coming of it. So I just sat down and wrote the song. This is really November of last year. I was still going through a divorce, and I think this was my coming to terms kind of song. It's like, if we can make this work, I want to make this work, but I get it. At the same time.
And I will say it's a very catchy song too. Every time you play this, I end up singing it for a while afterwards. So. All right, so you want to just get into it?
Yeah.
Right,
So
so
I sat down, I started playing a couple generic chords, and this is what came of it.
All right, so Nathan Teal, and the song is Goodbye.
I know this is crazy, but I don't know why. Moving on hasn't been easy, just feels like a lie. I can't just let go. If there's a chance to hold on, and I can't just throw this away, because the way just means you're gone. Why don't we say we're sorry? Why can't we give this one more try? If we were meant to be, then how can we just let this die. And I don't believe you've moved on now. So how can you know that he's so right? And if you change your mind, then I'll be running home tonight. I know this is my fault, and I know where I went wrong, and I can't erase it, but goodbye seems so wrong, so wrong. Didn't we swear forever? Does not matter now. If we turned it into never, help me make sense of this somehow. Why don't we say we're sorry? Why can't we give this one more try? If we were meant to be, then how can we just let this die? 'Cause I don't believe you've moved on now. So how can you know that he's so right? And if you change your mind, then I'll be running home tonight. It's not over yet. This is not over yet. If it's not over yet, this is my last ditch attempt. Why don't we say we're sorry? Why can't we give this one more try? If we were meant to be, then how can we just let this die? I don't believe you moved on now. So how can you know that he's so right? And if you change your mind, then I'll be running home tonight. But we won't say we're sorry, and I don't know if I'll be alright. Part of me thinks I love you, even though you said goodbye.
Nathan Teal, everybody. Nathan Teal. So, Nathan, again, thank you for being part of the first episode.
What the? Okay.
Oh my. That's a bit of the punk rock and roll coming through.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Anyone that's listening, anyone that's watching right now, we really appreciate it. If you haven't a chance and you haven't yet, please subscribe, like the video, do a little comment, what you'd like to see, what you would like to see less of. If that's less of me, maybe we could find a different host. We'll see. Different. Oh, you want to host? Well, Nathan's going to take over from now on. So, but anything you'd like to see, anything you want to see less of, please let me know. And Nathan, again, thank you for coming on. We got great guests already booked for the upcoming episodes. That just happened yesterday. It was like a flurry of guest booking and stuff.
Ooh.
And stay tuned again for whoever our sponsors are. We might have them on for a little secret episode thing going on. And we'll see you on the next episode. Nate, thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Let's drink some more whiskey after this. And if we're not arrested by the end of the night, then it wasn't a good night. So
I have to work tomorrow.
okay. Well, you don't have to get arrested. I'll get arrested tonight after some drinking to debauchery.
Okay.
And love you, man.
You do what you do.
And well, oh wait, one last thing. You guys got to stay tuned because myself, Nathan, and some other songwriters here in town have got something super secretive planned for next year. So I'll announce that as soon as we're able to announce it. But we've got something big planned. So thank you everyone for the first episode here and sticking with us and watching it and putting up with any technical difficulties that may or may not have been a part of this. We won't know until after we edit it. But we'll see you on the next episode. Later.
Bye.